Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. Welcome back. It's another epi of Mark here with you. Fine, folks, for what is our first fully jam-packed weekend recap. We are talking all four major regions, even the new Pacific America, not Americas, just Pacific LJL PCS. I don't even remember the name. Also kicking off. So all the regions are now underway.
We had the practice round last week, a little bit of an ease into the pool. Now it's the full dive. We got everything full send, all the major regions in action. Monday recap starts now.
And we begin with the opening weekend of the LTA, which, yes, had about 20-ish% less average and peak viewers than what we were getting in the spring split last year. People probably don't even know that the LTA North is actually the LCS. They might see that pop up on their feed and go, I don't know what that is. I'm not going to watch it. So don't panic yet. This is hopefully going to be a trajectory that goes upwards.
I think that's more so an indication of how many people were ready to kind of move on, step away from League of Legends, the professional scene, whatever, after the conclusion of the LCS, run last year and the big finale that we had and everything else. You move into this new LTA, and I don't think it's by any means a lack of advertising or trying to push it out there amongst the type of things. Just happens to be one of these things, and I think it's going to be a year-long, journey to climb back up, to work our way back up to some of these levels and establish the LTA. Starting out with some of the worst games you could schedule was probably not helping the viewership whatsoever.
Yeah, that definitely did more damage than the rebrand was having. Not a single game 3 on the day. It was 2-0s across the board, and you're starting with FlyQuest making Shopify look like they should not be in the tier 1 region with them.
Oh man, this was ugly. I think on one side you can take the positives of such an overwhelming force and clearly a cut above that FlyQuest was in this series as a positive for the LCS and, LTA now as we're going.
We're going to get a counter going for how many times we say it wrong.
Keep it running. But for the LTA to build up and to have one of these top level teams show out at a top level, good, check mark done. Not necessarily feeling so good about Shopify Rebellion looking so lost in this series, trading any type of, thing that they do, any action proactively for a massive loss macro-wise for what FlyQuest was able to do out there on the map really was an overwhelming force in this series.
The most competitive series of the day was probably at the 100 Thieves Disguised matchup, which was probably the most entertaining because it was close and because you had XU talking an unbelievable amount of trash talk. Unfortunately, learning very early on in the year that you can't trash talk too early into game 1 of series 1 of the year.
Eaten some words pretty early in the season for XU and the rest of Disguised Toes. This was a fun matchup. Got to see it. Of course, I think out of all the ones that as you laid out throughout the weekend that we had, this was probably the most competitive, most spirited type of one, even if at the end of the day, it is the 100 Thieves walking away a pretty clear winner from the series.
Yeah, aside from that first 10 minutes where Castle was getting some 1v2s, Sniper's getting dove, and he's getting trash talked again. But yeah, 100 Thieves, heck of a debut for FBI, who I think we kind of looked at as a side grade at best and not the off-season move we were looking for 100 Thieves, but showed up in his debut.
Yes, he did, and it was impactful performance, impactful damage coming through from him, which is the important thing when you're talking about his addition to this lineup, his return to 100 Thieves as the organization. Let's see how far it can go. I think this is one of those ones where it is initially 2 thumbs up, good for 100 Thieves, which is what you're looking for out of any of these matches type of one. I want to see how many thumbs up we're giving them when it's a Team Liquid, when it's a FlyQuest type of situation. That's obviously going to be one of those next tests, and maybe the next level for them as well is a Cloud9 type of matchup from what we saw from them against Leon Gaming, who again, despite the situations that they were dealing with, having to play remote and everything else, showed, I think, a little bit more signs of life than most people were expecting from them to start out the year.
Yeah, definitely when you compare what Shopify did against FlyQuest or what Dignitas did against Team Liquid, Lion Gaming at least had some fight back in that Cloud9 matchup, despite getting 2-0'd. And I think C9, it was a refreshing debut that they didn't look completely lost, and we're not getting excited over 1 week, but tentatively optimistic about this Cloud9 roster.
And I think, number one, I got to get some people on the board here. Spica doesn't actually really hate Sven. This is like a, persona type of joking type of thing that's going on the side in the co-stream. I want to get that one out of the way. But of course, when you're looking at this performance from Cloud9, you're jumping right away at the 2 Korean imports for this team, looking at top lane and mid lane and how they were able to perform spectacularly for this team. I think there's some other areas that you could talk about, maybe wanting to see a little bit more polish, and again, knowing what type of threats await in a Team Liquid, in a FlyQuest, and how you can challenge them. But early signs, very good so far for this Cloud9 team.
And early signs for Team Liquid are they piloted the Taliyah Pantheon combo to absolute perfection. Core JJ and APA both looked like they were having a whole lot of fun in this matchup against Dig. It was, again, another 2-0 stomp. But thankfully, what this first week does for us is you go, well, now week 2, you're guaranteed some good matchups because you got most of these duds out of the way.
Yes, you hope that that's the way the scheduling ends up working out, and where we match up with these ones should be juicier heading into this next part of the LTA as we keep progressing through these weeks and eventually moving on through. But overall, I think from just the fan viewership perspective, I thought it was pretty good. I like the layout of the broadcast arena and everything else that had for it. This one, the LTA gets a passing grade for me in the first week.
After all of the off-season drama between T1 and Hanwha, Ruler comes back to Gen G early on the LCK Cup. We're living in the D+ Kia era. Right now, it looks like the off-season move of Barrel coming over has had the biggest impact as D+ took down Hanwha Life in that head-to-head. It took 3 games, but they remained the only 4-0 squad, and that record reflecting that, yeah, they look like the best team in the LCK right now.
They are the best team in the LCK right now. Not just looking like it, they are putting the numbers up and proving it the way that they play. First, let's check in with the young guns, the rookie. You see Wu up in the top side, the stability and consistency that he's been able to bring right at the very beginning of his time in the LCK is incredibly
against Zeus. He just did it against Zeus.
And again, not like he's been going up against some throwaways in the beginnings. He's had some notable players, some marquee guys that we talk about in the LCK. And yes, you laid out Zeus, a defending world champion, stepping out onto the rift, and he's able to take him down. Alongside the sophomore, Lucid, in the jungle, I think nobody has improved more than he has and has looked more solid in his role so far this early bit of the LCK Spring. What he's been able to do, how he's been able to push his play and work with the rest of the team. And part of that is the big piece. Barrel coming down into the bottom lane, taking over the commands, the controls for all of this team. And you see that effect with everybody on this roster. You clearly see that synergy, that cohesion, and understanding what the call is, who's making it, and how do we act on it type of situation. And it's freed up Showmaker. And we are seeing Showmaker play like the Showmaker of old, the one that has been at the very top of talking about LCK mid laners for so many years now. This is the D+ Kia that is running at the very top of the LCK.
And I'm not sure anyone enjoys Fearless Draft more than Showmaker. Number one, he only has to play against Cassante at most once in a series, which is a big win for everybody. And of course, he gets to pull out all of these different spicy picks. But really the big difference from last year to this year for D+, it felt like so many times it was, let's get to the late game, hope aiming carries us. Because he had so many insane stats across the board. He was just fed gold. Let's hope he can carry us. It's almost the opposite this year. They get to these mid to late games, and the game's over. They don't even need aiming to be carrying them because they're just snowballing the game out of control.
And one of the things that I think a lot of people talk about and you kind of miss sometimes with Fearless Draft, it's maybe not necessarily, can you play this champion? You're a professional League of Legends player. You've played this champion. You can play it to a pretty darn high level amongst the, hundreds of champions that we have in the game now type of thing. But what it is can you build out a cohesive composition around new champions rotating through in pick and ban and all these type of things to keep it in an action state in game having Barrel on your team, able to go through that draft, able to say, yeah, okay, this is gone for Showmaker, this is gone, but he's still got all these ones that he can play, and what can we build around that, and how is that going to work in game, and what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses? Having a guy who's got that commander mindset on the team and taking control of it has been an incredible benefit for this D plus Kia team.
Really just hope they can keep this level going forward towards the next round of that LCK Cup when they do reach those best of 5 statuses, because the whole region is more exciting when D Plus is playing at this level. T1 marched to 3-1. The story was Owner on the day, really picking up series of the match, absolutely dominating on both the Lilia and the Xin Zhao. But what everyone's going to be talking about afterwards is a potential drama alert for T1, and that is because Smash started again in this series, and we kind of said if you bring him in for one series, probably going to bring him in for the week at the very least. But now everyone's going to be looking, when is Guma coming back? Is Guma going to come back? Is Smash the starter now? What's going on?
We only got through 1 week of the LCK, and the trucks have returned to Korea. No. Yes, they're out there. Yes, they're talking bad about T1.
And T1's winning. They're winning games.
And they want their boy Guma back in the lineup. I think, of course, we've had, a relatively politically correct type of controlled statement from T1 about how the choice was made to, get Smash in there. Yet we've also had more or less a tone response from Guma of being benched and wanting to use this as that motivation to improve, to get back in that starting lineup, whatever type of situation. So there is a cloud of fog around this situation for people that are just wanting to know about the T1 team, and then people that are the diehard fans of T1 and these players in the organization. I think the best course of action here is to come out and just flat out state it. And whether it's going to be a positive, negative reaction, whatever your choice is type of thing as T1, whichever route they're going with Smash or Guma, you owe it to both of these players and to the fans to make a concrete type of statement about what your intentions are with this substitution.
My main only issue is that this is so early. You just re-signed Guma. He's the defending world champion. We're the second week of the split. He played 1 week, and there's already enough behind the scenes for you to maybe think Smash needs to come in. I totally understand. Listen, Smash is a starting LCK caliber AD carry. No question. I feel like we were thinking that even before he started some of these games, but it just felt like if this is a benching, Guma's deserved more of a runway than this.
It's unfortunate because it turns this situation, which should be talking about, wow, wonderful, fantastic Smash has been immediately stepping in and not losing a beat with, number one, the LCK, but number two, the defending world champions in T1, whether he's not missed a beat on this lineup, been able to contribute, being able to look like not lost out of his element with this talent level. But for the situation it is, and for Guma, as you talked about, recently re-signing that contract, the runway room that should be there in figuring things out and working through it. And again, not that there really was any problem to start with Guma when you're looking at this one for T1. So it's a very confusing situation, and understandably so that people have their emotions high already, given the investment that people have within the organization of T1 and for the players like Guma.
And that's win or lose. It's going to be the main story for T1 going forward, especially whoever they're losing with immediately. We're going to be calling for the other guy to come in, even if whoever's piloting the AD carry spot has nothing to do with the wins or losses that are coming out for T1. Really feels like we are entering a new era in the LEC because you have the rivalry, the matchup, G2 versus Fnatic. Mickey's going against his former team now. First time on Fnatic. It's a 27-minute stomp in the way of Fnatic, and it feels like this was a side quest. This was an appetizer for the weekend.
Book it right now. Fnatic undefeated versus G2 2025.
End of season. Season's over. That's it. No more.
Holy moly. What a game this was. Absolute obliteration from the side of Fnatic, and I think this is one of those ones where I got to put the silly clown head on to myself and say, yes, Askirant dominated Broken Blade in this matchup. The way that he was able to play, he has been really a mega improvement and fantastic strength for this Fnatic team throughout the early parts of this LEC split. And yes, you're right. It's not just this Fnatic loss that is important to keep track of, because the other action, the other impressive teams in the LEC are all contributing to looking at G2 and going, are you going to wake up? Is something going to happen? We're waiting, because something's got to happen.
Especially when you combine this loss with their earlier win, barely scraping out a W against Vitality north of like 45 minutes. And this Fnatic game, you see, when Caps has a bad game, G2's got like no chance of winning a game.
It really looked incredibly hopeless for G2 in this one against Fnatic, which is so lost, so unfounded that we haven't really been able to talk about any of these moments in the past. I think maybe last year, looking back at that summer split where G2 kind of floundered a little bit, maybe there was a moment here or two or there where we had performances close to this. But to go through pretty much these full 2 start weeks of the LEC and look like you haven't really got the engine going, yet we've got a couple of these teams that are showing we've got new engines in the LEC and we're hitting new speed records. Can you keep up? G2's not off the start line.
It's like all of a sudden electric vehicles are here in the LEC and everyone's going, oh man, check out these EVs, because who cares about G2 and Fnatic when you've got K-Corp, Koi, and obviously Giant X now sitting at 4-1. They're the much more interesting 4-1 squads than Fnatic, and the head-to-head of Koi and Giant X this week was the highest caliber, highest quality match that we had.
That has to be the scariest thing for G2, is knowing that, okay, yeah, we've had, the whoopsies, the uglies, and the mistakes all this point, and it's cost us to whatever, and we just lost to the big rival, our historic rival in Fnatic. But it's the movement that's happening in the rest of the LEC, again, that should have them more so worried, because a team like Fnatic finds themselves still looking up at the other teams, the other threats in the LEC themselves, when you're talking about, you laid it out, Giant X, K-Corp, and of course, Movistar, Koi, and our boy Jojo Pyun making some good moves again this week. I think one of the best things about this move really has been that attitude shift for this organization, for these players, and taking the brunt of it all as Jojo Pyun. He's going to be out there. He'll be trash talking. He'll get trash talked himself, but he's going to be the front of that shield. He's the head of it. Everybody else falling behind and keep on moving. And Movistar, Koi, they're keeping on moving to that 4-1 record, as we said.
Yeah, he's easily there to be the scapegoat and the guy that they're going to praise on these broadcasts first and foremost. And you get that even within a game sometimes, right? You go, why are you solo pushing up there getting caught out? Or, 1v4 engage, bait the whole team and win the game. He can do both sides of that spectrum pretty easily, as we've already seen with Koi.
Yes, and I like that he had the moment to kind of have a little bit of humility and then kind of mention at least to the LEC crowd that, you know what, I think the overall level of talent, the competition that you have in Europe is higher than you have in the LCS, in the LTA, back in America where you have, the differing tiers and everything else. And over in the LEC, you got the ERL teams, you have the lower tier LEC teams still competing at a faster pace than what you do look at maybe in the LTA, according to Jojo Pyun, what he has seen. So getting that little recognition over must be nice for the LEC crowd. He still says he's going to be there to stomp and take down everybody else. Everybody else is going to include K-Corp and Giant X. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and even though Giant X lost that head-to-head with Koi, you're still feeling very good about them. Noah and Jun look absolutely deadly, and Lot, obviously we highlighted in the stud of week 1, continues to perform well. And then, Carmine Corp also sitting real good. They had like a 15k gold lead. They alone were averaging a kill per minute. They had some stomps this week. Kalist on Draven. This guy is not only living up to the insane amount of hype that he already got, he might be exceeding it.
I'm going to argue right away that right now you will never see a team make a bigger growth between seasons than you did K-Corp this year. You go back to what you saw last year, the debut split of K-Corp in the LEC, and how abysmal and how much they struggled throughout the whole year.
They were celebrating getting 2 wins in a split.
To get more than 2 wins in a split. Now we're looking at this team. Kana is showing more of that promise that we talked about back in the LCK, back in the T1 days when he was a hyped up prospect and showing us what he can do. You're looking at Yike not missing a beat from the G2 early stepping stone that he had. You're moving on, and you're looking at Kalist down in the bottom lane. And I'll tell you right now, if you haven't already, this guy's a monster. He is going to take over, and he is going to be a beast that is going to push the LEC to lengths and extremities that we've never seen before. And we've had incredibly talented players, and that's not meant to disparage what they've done, the heights they've reached, or the talent that they have. But I see Khalees right now. I see his ability in this game and his hunger for it. Guy's the limit. My guy's going to keep going.
And nobody, coupled with G2 struggling, nobody's stock's going higher right now than Yike, looking like the captain of this KC lineup. Well, G2 is trying to get things sorted out. Maybe people are looking and going, oh, maybe Yike was a little more important to this team than we thought.
I think it is right now, and that's not meant to be any unfortunate or any negative thing really to Guma himself, but when you're seeing the difference in how G2 is operating, and again, a big part of that, and again, I think it would be criminal to to underestimate and take it away from this type of equation, is what Mickey's contribution was to that in the development of Yike throughout that first year on G2. But man, oh man, it has continued. You're seeing all the promise and potential that we had with G2 and only taking it even further, extra strides of growth and development for him. Game after game after game, this Carmine Corp team, these rising teams in the LEC make it so exciting.
Yeah, especially coming from last year, which, let's face it, at times was a bit depressing. How far ahead G2 was from everyone else and how there wasn't really a second team that you were excited about. But now, all these 4-1 squads with so much young talent, it's a breath of fresh air to the entire region.
It felt like last year with any of the teams that, could put into that challenger type of spot to a G2, to a Fnatic type of one, crumbled and withered away in various ways throughout the year, that they didn't sustain that level of excitement, that level of potential lethality against one of these teams. I think it's a very different story, the way that we have seen these games play out so far in the LEC with those teams that we have talked about, and especially also the position where G2 is. It's not the same as last year where it's like, okay, teams will fall back down, G2 will rise back up. You don't have that same type of feeling given the way these matches have played out and the rosters in the LEC right now.
And listen, even if you're assuming that G2 does bounce back come these best of series, if these other teams stay at this level, I mean, you're happy for it as a G2 fan and as an LEC fan that everyone is tested and the level of the region is being raised up for 2025. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolutely stunning individuals. Thanks for hanging out as always, and we will catch you